Welcome to Blueprints. I'm Bodine Sanders. I'm your producer and host. I created Blueprints to focus on the positive aspects of diversity, equity, and inclusion, the model and the foundation. I invite leaders from various industries to share their knowledge, their life experiences with you, the viewers. So let's get started. Allow me to introduce you to my guest, Father Robert P. Hagan, or what we call him, Father Rob. He's the prior provincial at province of St. Thomas at Villanova. That's a mouthful. Did I say it correctly?
You did.
And you know this is going to be an outstanding program today, because pretty much it's all about Villanova. Pretty much, right? So the first question I ask all of my guests is to share your views or your perspective on diversity, equity, and inclusion based on what you do.
You know, it couldn't be a more important topic, not just a topic, but a way of life. And we all know what's going on in our world, in our country, the polarization, the division. And yet deep down, I think within every human heart is that desire for belonging, that, you know, everybody has a story, that everybody has a yearning to be welcomed and to be loved. And so I find myself in a position, whether it was at Villanova or now my new role as provincial for the province of St. Thomas Villanova, to really help promote that message, that way of life. My role, you know, is not just at Villanova now. We have other schools in Merrimack College and Malvern Prep and St. Augustine Prep and other parishes. And you know, and I'm not reinventing the wheel here. And so we do take our inspiration and our direction from our Lord Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. He loved everybody. Mm-hmm. You know, he welcomed everybody. He forgave everybody. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, this isn't my idea, but it is a way of life that, you know, has been shown to us that works. Mm-hmm. And deep down, regardless of your faith tradition, I think there's a spirit that unites us all. And any way that we can promote that in business, certainly in sport and team, in the church, mm-hmm. I think we're all called to do that.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. And it's a special theme today. I often say this, I've said it before, I will continue to say it. I believe in a spiritual foundation and a sports foundation. Mm-hmm. For those who haven't read my book and that are not aware, I grew up in a Southern mm-hmm. Baptist environment, right, in Jacksonville, Florida, where I attended my grandmother's Southern Baptist church. She was a leader in the church. Yeah. And when I transferred to Villanova from Cheney, I began to learn about the commonalities. My grandmother was the head usher. Right. She was the disciplinarian for the little ones sitting in the church. Right. And I discovered that there was a commonality between the nuns and the ushers, right? Because I heard my Catholic teammates talk about the nuns and them being disciplinarians. So for someone who grew up in an all-black environment and then transferred to the Villanova experience, that was something I, you know, was able to say, oh, we have something in common. Yeah. Does that make sense? Absolutely makes sense.
I really appreciate the way you phrased it, because, you know, nobody has a monopoly on values. You know, you start talking about, you know, at Villanova we talk about veritas, unitas, caritas. Mm-hmm. You know, truth, love, and unity, and so that speaks to, you know, every family, mm-hmm. every state, every geography, and so I was blessed, you know, in my time at Villanova to, you know, work with some wonderful coaches. You know, people like Jay Wright and Andy Talley and Kyle Neptune and Mark Ferrani and Marcus O'Sullivan and on and on. And they would invite me into the recruiting process. And so I'd have an opportunity often to meet with a family. And they might not be Catholic. They might not be white. They might not be, familiar with Villanova. Mm-hmm. But as we would talk, and often they would be, the student athlete would be accompanied by a grandmother or an uncle. Mm-hmm. And we would just talk about common values, like we go to class. Mm-hmm. We want you to graduate. Mm-hmm. There's only one ball, mm-hmm. and so we're looking for humility and willingness to be a part of something bigger than yourself, mm-hmm. and that would resonate, mm-hmm. And it wasn't like because we were in the same church, mm-hmm. or I came from your town, mm-hmm. and so it was so exciting to find that common ground and build on it.
Nice. Yeah. Nice. I mean, you sent a few pictures in, and one is a picture you took with the coaches, yeah. Denise Dillon, Jay Wright, Cal Neptune. So that's a great picture. Did I leave anybody out? If that covers all three of the coaches, right? Yeah,
I love that picture because that particular event was an event to help support the Augustinians. Brothers who have worked their entire life, and now they're on the other side of their active ministry, and mm-hmm. they're in the monastery, and mm-hmm. and some of them are assisted living, some mm-hmm. of them need medical care, mm-hmm. and so it was an opportunity to just remind people that we're trying to support those people in that state of life, but those coaches use their platform, mm-hmm. And their outreach mm-hmm. to bring that awareness. And we're really grateful for our partnership with Villanova Athletics.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, you mentioned, I played under Coach Talley.
Right. I remember you.
Mark Ferrante came in, I think it was my sophomore or junior year. He came in. Jay Wright came in after the first basketball championship. Right. So that would have been my sophomore year under Coach Massimino. He came in. Brian Westbrook, there's another picture you submitted. Brian Westbrook is after me as well. You took a picture with him and Malcolm Grace. Malcolm Grace is a great guy. I've had a number of conversations with him. You have a unique experience to talk about how team sports, because I talk about this as well, how team sports is a great way to build relationships across different socioeconomic backgrounds and religions, ethnicity, all of it. Share with us.
Yeah, and thanks for bringing up that picture, because that picture with Brian and Malcolm was taken on a day dedicated at Villanova toward allyship. Mm-hmm. And that would be recognizing that people, often on the margins, mm-hmm. It's not enough to say have a good day, good luck.
Yeah.
But what are you doing to invest in their success? Mm-hmm. We had a great conversation before the show about, Jerome, your intern, mm-hmm. and giving somebody a chance, mm-hmm. And really using your platform and your experience to maybe help somebody else advance their life. And so that day was spent kind of promoting that message, and certainly Brian and Malcolm have done that in their lives. So, sport, and I've heard you say it before, there really is an intersection between sport and spirituality. Mm-hmm. And, to be in a locker room, with people of all different races and faiths and economic background, to be working towards a common goal.
Absolutely.
The sweat is the same, the blood's the same color, mm-hmm. And you start to realize, we really need each other. And I have to tell you, quite frankly, and Villanova, we're working on our attention to diversity. I mean, that's a goal for us. Mm-hmm. But working in athletics has really been a gift to my priesthood. Mm. Because there really is no, greater opportunity for diversity than, in a locker room on a football team or a basketball team, where you're going after people who have a common goal, who want to share their talents, and they come together, and the next thing you know, you're trying to kind of build that harmony, so that force, that recognition that we're the sum of our parts mm-hmm. is greater than any individual. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I find the coaches, the special coaches, are preaching to them more than I am. You know, there's only so much you can talk about X and O's, and obviously you need some talent on the field. But what are the intangibles? You know, do we respect each other? Do we forgive each other? Do we pick each other up? And so, you know, in my role, I try to look for examples of inspiration, you know, often from scripture, but off from life, you know. And then what's really exciting is when they start to do it themselves. You know, when it's not just me or the coach, but, you know, it's a captain, or maybe it's not a captain. It's just, maybe it's an underclassman, you know, who's encouraging in that way. And then you've got something special because it's coming from them.
I wrote about that in my book, and I don't want to make this conversation about me, but there's just so many.
No, your story is inspiring.
Father Stack was that person, that instrument. He was very important to me in my development because he was one of the first priests that I met when I arrived at Villanova. Don DiCarlo, who worked at Villanova, was my first father figure. And I'd heard athletes for a long time talk about having a father figure and that father figure not be of the same race. I didn't know what that meant, right? But I found out by spending time and working my work-study job with Don DiCarlo. I talk about Bobby Lambert, who was also an incredible person that worked in athletics. There are so many people, Gene Fazio. I can talk about Mom, Joe McGuckin. I mean, there are just Bill McDonough Sr., who was working back then. I mean, there were just so many people that had that helped me grow and teach me so I could navigate this new environment. Because if I didn't navigate this new environment, who knows what path I would have been, because football didn't continue after Villanova, right? There was a slight window, and I want to thank Mr. Irving. Most people know him as Dr. J, who helped me go to a combine to determine whether or not I was good enough. And when I determined I wasn't good enough, then it was time to get a job because he pulled me aside and talked to me about aging out. No, you need to know now so you can move on with your life. But there were so many people, but Father Stack, again, to circle back, was very important. He helped me out because I wasn't on full scholarship, so he was able to pull some strings. You know, you talk about athletes that most people don't know. Some athletes are fighting homelessness at times in their life because they're not on full scholarship. He was there for me, and so helping Jerome is just a byproduct of me giving back, so to speak, because I had people that helped me. Because if I didn't get that help, I probably would have had to left Villanova. And who knows where I would have ended up. Does that make
it does
resonate?
Yeah, you've probably heard the line before, but you know, it's you know, be kind to people, because everybody you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about.
Correct.
And you see people and you say, how you doing? And they say fine, and they smile. And behind that might be, I'm homesick. Or, you know, nobody on this campus looks like me. Or I haven't sat on the bench since third grade and now I'm not playing. And I'm losing my identity. And so we, you know, we all know that, you know, mental health is a big issue these days. And not just for students, but for all of us. And so it really is, I think, you know, what we're talking about here is just a great opportunity to reach out to people. Don't assume everybody's okay. In fact, you know, everybody's walking around with a broken heart. And so, you know, if you have an opportunity to be a father to somebody, or to be a friend to somebody, or just have a cup of coffee with somebody and ask how you're doing and actually wait to hear the answer. You know, I had a wonderful opportunity last week. I celebrated the wedding for two of our former basketball players. I don't think they'll mind me mentioning it. Kevin Rafferty was on the national championship team in 2016.
Okay.
He's a Malvern grad, Malvern Prep grad.
Yep.
And Tony Chenault, who was a little bit older than Kevin, so wasn't on that team, but they had overlapped for a period of time on the team, you know? And, really from different worlds. Tony was from North Philly. Tony was exceptionally highly recruited, went to Wake Forest for his freshman year. And, tragically, separately lost both his mother and his brother.
Ooh.
Transferred back to Villanova to be closer to home. And so these two intersect on this team. And at the wedding last week, Tony Chenault was his best man.
Oh.
And he stood up and he made a toast. And he said, Kevin, when I met you at Villanova, I was trying to prove myself, and I was trying to overcome a lot of difficulty in my own life. And you were trying to show that you belonged on the team, and we bonded. And your family, it became my family. And so, he kept referring to him as his brother. And I just thought, what a wonderful story that, sport brought them together on a team, and they discovered so much more. And they literally refer to each other now as brothers. And they picked each other up in areas of life that they both needed it.
I experienced the same thing with Perry Hodge, Rich Lage, who I call Big Country. I wrote about it in my book. Great. They stepped up on a bigger level for me when I had a hardship. I talk about Bobby Days. I talk about Xavier Hargrove, who we gave the nickname X-Man. Jeff Dingle, who unfortunately passed away in 9/11. Darryl Stewart, Jeremy Rowell, Joe Allen was the captain of my team. I could talk about Jim Cashman. I could talk about, just Art Conadina. I can go through a list of guys, and some guys who didn't finish the program, like Chris Moore, who's local here. Tony Gallo, who lives in Georgia, who left the program, who was from Jersey. There are Nate Booknight. There are a number of guys. I can't forget Richard Buzz Bass. There are a number of guys I can mention who you build relationships with. That relationship, Bill McDonough Jr., that never goes away, right? And you may not see each other for years, but as soon as you see each other, as soon as you talk to each other on the phone, you rekindle that relationship. And another reason I wrote the book is because I would see people talk about athletes, or you would see it in the media, and they would say, show athlete, and it's a feel-good moment. You would see athletes, male and female, refer to each other as brothers and sisters. But it's a 5-minute take. They don't get a chance to really go into depth of how they built that relationship. You get a chance to see, you just explained it, how those relationships start organically and are built to become the fabric of their relationship for a long period of time, right?
Oh, it's so true. It's really a gift. And, in my new role, I'm not as connected to the athletics department as I was, and I really missed that aspect of it. Obviously people like to talk about the championships and cutting down the net, but when you're sitting on the bus or you're waiting for a flight that didn't show up, it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you're eating chicken fingers with a guy and you find out, he just broke up with his girlfriend. Or, his grandmother is not well back at home, or his cousin's in prison. And you start to have these conversations and build these meaningful relationships. And that's why you get so passionate on the bench, because you're rooting for them like your own family. And Bo, I do a lot of funerals. And nobody comes up to the podium to give the eulogy and say, man, he had a big house.
Right.
Or, he scored all the points. They say, he picked me up when I was down. He reached out to me when he knew I lost my job. There are those moments that don't always make the cover of SportsCenter, that really are the essence of what we're talking about. And it defies race. It defies, what your title or your bank account says. And I really do, and this is why and I think we're both in the business that we're in, is deep down, most people believe that.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
then if we can find ways to cut through all the noise and all the external stuff that we use to separate ourselves and get into that common ground, which, Augustine would say is our heart, and to be able to walk with these, men and women on those journeys, at least for a short time, has been a gift.
How about the one last season with Maddie?
Oh my gosh.
When I was at the game, it was during Black History Month, and she dropped 50, and I'm sitting on the sideline, and I'm, saying hello. I'm part of the legacy group. There are folks there from the 80s, the 70s, the 60s, and I'm having conversations, and I'm looking at my phone all of a sudden, and I look up, and she's got 37. I'm like, hold on, did the game just start? She's got 37. So at that point, I'm like, I got to pay attention. Talk about on the women's side, seeing our women build relationships with each other the same way the guys do, because you had a chance to see that.
Absolutely, and I've been involved with a lot of these teams, soccer and field hockey and volleyball, and you're right. It's not always the stuff that that everybody talks about first, but the women know. They know who has a member of their family that's sick. They know who's coming back from an injury. They know who, even Maddie. I mean, everybody knew that Maddie was the star. But if you get to know Maddie, you realize she doesn't view herself as the star. She's a very humble person. And so when your stars are the hardest working people in practice, when your stars are the ones who are doing kind of the little nitty gritty things, that they're not above that, then you have something special. And I know Denise really cultivates that. She's a product of it. She played,
She played for Harry?
She played for Harry. And I know she had to overcome a shoulder injury. And then, she had a very successful career coaching at Drexel. And so, I think, in hiring, that's what you're really looking for. I mean, you have the resume in front of you, but you're trying to identify these core values. And in the end, I think they trump everything else. Obviously, you want to win, and that's the wonderful thing about being around the athletes is they are competitive. But you can compete for the faith. You can compete for the poor. You can compete for the people on the margins. You can compete for the sick. And so you can take that competitive drive and then focus it in other ways for good.
Absolutely.
And we watch them do it.
Absolutely. There's a difference, and I know you've seen this, there's a difference between, because every generation changes, right? I played under Coach Talley, my position coach. I have to give him a shout out, Paul Ferraro, right? He and I we developed a relationship because I'll give you an example. I grew up in Florida.
Yes.
I had all black teammates, all black male coaches. I start my career at Cheyney University, the oldest HBCU in the country. I had all black teammates at that time. Andre Waters was a senior when I was a freshman. And I had all black coaches. And then I get to Villanova, and there's only one black coach and all white coaches. So Paul Ferraro was my first position coach. It was difficult for me because I'd never had a white coach. Now, somebody say, well, why does it make a difference? It made a difference because I never had a white coach. But I had teammates around me who helped me. Right? So, but Coach Talley, Coach Massimino, we now have to throw Jay Wright in there, right? There's a different time and era, right, with these coaches. Now you have the newer coaches, and they have to be able to communicate with these younger players. I have a 23-year-old, believe me, I know. And she's kind of just like me. And so, but you can talk about how sports is a great way to build those relationships and have that, build that camaraderie in order to reach them so you can help them obtain whatever goals they're trying to achieve. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. You're spot on. I mean, you hit a couple of real big buzzwords, and one of them is communication. Even to the, to the extent that obviously you have to X and O it, and you want to have some experience. But if you're a good communicator, you know, to reach a broad base, to be able to identify with where people are coming from, and you know that really speaks to what you know I know you're passionate about, and that is diversity and equity and inclusion. When you yourself have engaged with other people in other cultures, in other ways of life, then you bring that back, and then you have the wherewithal to say, you know, how I talk to this person might be a little different than how I talk to this person, you know, and you know, you've heard the old expression, and it applies to really all of us, coaches and teachers. You know, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Correct.
And I've seen that in coaches, that you can be hard on a student athlete and push them maybe beyond where they've been pushed before, if they believe that you care and love them. If you're just using them trying to win games,
they'll see it.
They'll see it. They'll sense
right through it.
And you can tell the difference. And so that's a gift.
Yeah.
And it warms my heart to hear you say that you experienced some of that, you know, at Villanova, because I do know a little bit about your story, and that had to be a big challenge.
Oh.
You know, and I think it's still challenging for others. And so for somebody like me, like, you know, the 50-year-old white guy, you know what I mean, to at least have conversations like this so that you can engage with somebody and say, look, I don't know what it's like to walk in your footsteps, but I can understand and appreciate that this might be difficult, and how can we walk together?
Listen, you said it correctly, but having your experience and bringing that experience to the table can assist and help. Talk about the relationship you have with Jay Wright. I mean, I'm not going to bury the lead here. I mean, you have a relationship with Jay that goes back a while. Am I right?
Well, we do. I have great respect for Jay as a friend, as a coach. He was there about 2 years before I got there. And we both kind of had the same passion and love for Villanova basketball, and for Rolly, because, you know, he worked for him. And I was a student at Villanova when we won the first championship in 1985.
Really?
Yeah,
you were there when I was there? Oh my God.
So I always tell the kids, you know, when they're you know, coming to Villanova, I wish them the same experience. I was in Stanford Hall with my buddies, having a couple of cold libations, watching Villanova win the national championship. And it was just this incredible, inspiring nugget that stayed with me, and that is, you know, believe in all things are possible. They won that game, as you may know, on April Fool's Day.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, you're not a fool to believe that what you can accomplish as a team when people come together and are focused on a greater good than just themselves. Well, Jay has embraced that concept, and so has Kyle. But talking about Jay, and you know, I think, you know, credit to his parents, to his wife Patty, to his own faith, that he again would preach to these guys as much or more than I did, and so we had that common bond. That I think in some cases, you know, a chaplain could be like, well, why don't you say Hail Mary and get out of the way, Father? You know, in this case, he invited me to really be immersed in the program. You know, in recruiting, in pregame, in addressing the team every game. You know, prayer before, prayer after, win or lose, it doesn't matter. And so we really forged a bond there, I think, in a way, a spiritual bond. And then, you know, obviously the success was what the success was. But I also think we walked with each other through some failure. And so now, you know, I'm happy for him. You know, he seems at peace in his new chapter with his wife and his family, and still being, you know, in touch with basketball as he is, you know. And it's been a wonderful friendship, and he's been a great friend to the Augustinians.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about how winning helps build relationships. Because in my book, I wrote about it. That 1985 championship. You just said you were in Stanford. I was in St. Mary's. And I was in Ed Pinkney Easy Ed's room with Rosie, his wife, girlfriend at the time, significant other, and all of our crew, right? Yeah. Our Norristown crew, our mainline crew. We had people from all over. packed in this little small room. And I sat there and I looked at all the different people in the room and I went, wow.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
And then as we were leading up to that championship game, right?
Yeah.
Every weekend there was a win, a big win.
Yeah.
I saw the campus transform into this incredible, almost, I wrote about it, almost utopia.
Yeah.
Everybody, because I had never experienced, in high school, we didn't win a state title, right? My high school was more known for track in terms of its success than football, right? So I had never been a part of that type of championship. So I got a chance to see it on a different level, how people who would normally walk by each other and just say hi now stopped and had a conversation.
Yeah.
People who maybe normally didn't say hi all of a sudden started to say hi. People, the entire campus was just literally transformed into this great place to want to be because of winning. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, I agree. I even remember last year, you're, in Philly now with us and you just think about, the Phillies went to the World Series, the Eagles went to the Super Bowl. They actually said that crime was down in the fall. That there is something about
cause and effect.
That you're together and you're at the Wawa and you hold the door for the guy behind you and it's like you just feel like we're all elevated together, and I think the buzzword certainly at Villanova but in life is community. That there is something about sport and team and certainly the success that comes with that builds community where like you feel like you're all in it together.
Yeah.
And, we experience that. A lot of times I'll talk to the guys about different parables, and there's one parable of the fig tree. So long story short, the owner comes out and sees the fig tree, and there's no figs on the tree. So he says, well, no figs on the tree, cut the tree down. But the gardener says, no, let me keep digging. Let me pull out the weeds. Let me pull out the rocks. Let me cultivate the soil. Let me keep working at this. And then we'll see if there's fruit on the tree. Right. And what I came to realize is like fig trees could go years without bearing any fruit. But that sense of like not giving up and then working together towards a common goal. And then when you get fruit on the tree,
right.
You're so grateful. And gratitude, when you're walking around with gratitude in your heart, it displaces all the other division. Like I'm happy for you and I'm happy for you. And I think that's what comes. Now I think the challenge is to live with that gratitude even when you don't come home with the trophy.
Yeah.
And I think we've all been in experiences where, we lost. Or we bled together. And to really still cultivate that, that bond, like we're still grateful to have each other. And I think that's a challenge for us, is to remind people that like we're called to be this way, not just in the good times.
But the bad times.
Yeah, maybe especially the bad times.
Losing builds character. Not everybody can win. So you have to, right? It's part of the thing that as athletes, we were taught to lose, right? And show respect in that loss, right? And that's a teachable thing, right? Yeah. You can't be a sore loser. No. That's a phrase for a reason, right?
One of the things I love about you guys as football players, and really, I guess to every sport, but you see, you go to battle. It's such a rough sport. You knock each other down. Guys are bleeding. There's a winner and there's a loser. And then what happens? Everybody goes out there and shakes hands.
Sportsmanship.
Yeah. And I can remember, Coach Talley or Ferrani, or kind of looking up and saying, "Hey guys, come on. We're not that. We're going to go out and shake hands."
Yeah. It's tough, but you have to do it.
You got to respect your opponent.
You have to do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, listen, this isn't the normal way I would end the program, but we went beyond our time.
Oh, no.
So quickly, I'm going to ask you, what are you hopeful for in the future regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Yeah. Thanks for the question. My prayer and my hope is for unity. That people will embrace this concept, not just as a topic for discussion, but as a way of life. to understand that as Augustine would say, each of us strengthens all of us. That we truly are better together. And every one of us has different talents. Every one of us has different gifts. And that is really what Jesus did. He recognized everybody's gifts. And there were lepers out there that people ran away from and avoided. And he touched them. When he engaged everybody. And what happened was, as he pulled those people together, the community got stronger. Yeah. And so my prayer and my hope is for our world and our country that we continue to never give up on that ideal.
Well, listen, we don't have all the answers, but we're going to endeavor and do our best to hear, listen, and learn to do as much as possible to help everybody in this quest, because we need to, and I believe athletes have a unique position, because athletes are coached and taught by professors. Let's stick to the college level, by professors, but they also have coaches that are teachers as well. Right. So when you get it twice, it becomes ingrained in you. So you have the ability to fall back or stand on a foundation, right? So athletes, not just the captains, but all of the athletes have an ability to be leaders in this movement, so to speak, to just be better humans. Yes. Right? Yeah. You agree with that?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, listen, we've come to the end of our program. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We want to thank Father Rob for being our guest.
Thank you.
Don't worry, he'll be back. No doubt, he'll be back. And listen, thank you all for your time. We appreciate it. We'll see you again.